Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janaballabha Girdharadhari Gopi Janaballabha Girdharadhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamunira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janaballabha Girdharadhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna. Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Mishpavams of Radhikata, Sto Desatasisimad, A.C. Bhaktivedanta, Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki, Jai Om Vishnu Pavams of Radhikata, Sto Desatasisimad, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada ki, Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda ki, ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki, Nam Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki, Praise Ho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Go Bhaktivinoda ki, Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopakupina, Shama Kun Radha Kun, Giri Govardhan ki, Vrindavan Dham ki, Navadvip Dham ki, Ganga Mai ki, Yamuna Mai ki, Tulasi Devi ki, Bhakti Devi ki, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki, Gaura Premanande. All glorious to assembled devotees. All glorious to assembled devotees. All glorious to assembled devotees. All glorious to Sisi Guru Gauranga. Today we will dip into the 5th canto, chapter 12. Rahugana converses with Jud Bharat. And we'll get some very relevant instructions about how to handle the affairs of the world, the influences of the world, the various changes of the world, current events, so on and so forth. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th canto, chapter 12, text 13. Yatrottama shloka gunanuvada. Prastuyate gramya kata vigata. Nishevyamano nurinam muksho. Matim satim yachati vasudeve. Yatrottama shloka gunanuvada. Prastuyate gramya kata vigata. Nishevyamano nurinam muksho. Matim satim yakshati vasudeve. Yatrottama shloka gunanuvada. Prastuyate gramya kata vigata. Nisevyamano nurinam muksho. Matim satim yachati vasudeve.
Yatrottama shloka gunanuvadaha. Prastuyate gramya kata vigataha. Sevamana nudidam muksho. Vasudeve.
Natim Satim Yashati Vasudeve.
Yatrottama Shloka Gunanuvada.
Yatrottama Shloka Gunanuvada.
Pratsuyate Gramya Katha Vigata.
Pratsuyate Gramya Katha Vigata.
Nishevyamano Nudinam Numukshor.
Nishevyamano Nudinam Numukshor.
Matim Satim Yachati Vasudeve.
Matim Satim Yashati Vasudeve. Yatrottama Shloka Gunanuvada. Prastuyate Gramya Katha Vigata. Nishevyamano Nudinam Numukshor. Matim Satim Yashati Vasudeve.
Vaishnavis,
Yatrottama Shloka Gunanuvada. Prastuyate Gramya Katha Vigata. Nishevyamano Nudinam Numukshor. Matim Satim Yashati Vasudeve. Yatrottama Shloka Gunanuvada. Prastuyate Gramya Katha Vigata. Nishevyamano Nudinam Numukshor. Matim Satim Yashati Vasudeve.
Yatra, in which place? In the presence of exalted devotees. Uttama Shloka Guna Anuvada. Discussion of the pastimes and glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Prastuyate is presented. Gramya Katha Vigata, due to which there is no chance of talking of worldly matters. Nishevyamana, being heard very seriously. Anudinam, day after day. Mumuksho, of persons who are very serious about getting out of material entanglement. Matim, meditation. Satim, pure and simple. Yachati is turned. Vasudeva, unto the lotus feet of Lord Vasudeva. Translation. Who are the pure devotees mentioned here? In an assembly of pure devotees, there is no question of discussing material subjects like politics and sociology. In an assembly of pure devotees, there is discussion only of the qualities, forms, and pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is praised and worshipped with full attention. In the association of pure devotees, by constantly hearing such topics respectfully, even a person who wants to merge into the existence of the absolute truth abandons this idea and gradually becomes attached to the service of Vasudeva. Purport. The symptoms of pure devotees are described in this verse. The pure devotee is never interested in material topics. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has strictly prohibited his devotees to talk about worldly matters. Gramya Varta na kohibe. one should not indulge in talking unnecessarily about news of the material world. One should not waste time in this way. This is a very important feature in the life of a devotee. A devotee has no other ambition than to serve Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This Krishna consciousness movement was started to engage people 24 hours daily in the service of the Lord and his glorification. The students in this institution engage in the cultivation of Krishna consciousness from 5 in the morning to 10 at night. They actually had no opportunity to waste their time unnecessarily by discussing politics, sociology, and current events. These will go their own way. A devotee is concerned only with serving Krishna positively and seriously. Translation again. Who are the pure devotees mentioned here? In an assembly of pure devotees, there is no question of discussing material subjects like politics and sociology. In an assembly of pure devotees, there is discussion only of the qualities, forms, and pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is praised and worshipped with full attention. In the association of pure devotees, by constantly hearing such topics respectfully, even a person who wants to merge into the existence of the Absolute Truth abandons this idea and gradually becomes attached to the service of Vasudeva. Om Gyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Militanyena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So from this verse and purport, you might think that devotees could be considered cloistered, extremely sheltered, and naive. How can you live in this world without trying to understand this world? So what is being discussed here? What is Judd Bart saying? Are we supposed to just, as one confused devotee said to me, are we just supposed to close our eyes and chant Hare Krishna? In other words, by the focus on Krishna's name, form, qualities, and pastimes, you don't know how to handle the world. You just close your eyes to it and pretend it's not there. In other words, does chanting Hare Krishna blind you? No. Chanting Hare Krishna, talking about Krishna, opens your eyes. And you can see why Judd Bart will instruct in this way. So, we read in the purport, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has strictly prohibited his devotees to talk about worldly matters. Gramya Varta na kohibe. One should not indulge in talking unnecessarily about news of the material world. One should not waste time in this way. So I say, well, Prabhupada would comment sometimes about world affairs, and even my menial self sometimes comments briefly on world affairs. But you notice that the emphasis is on unnecessarily and how world affairs will go their own way no matter what you say. What's a good example of how you may talk about something in passing or very lightly without getting absorbed in it? The weather. So I check the weather every day. It takes me about 2 minutes. I go to the Met Weather app on my phone. It gives the New Zealand weather. as accurately as weather can be predicted in New Zealand. So, okay, I'm checking the weather every day, but am I absorbed in the weather report? Oh my God, I mean, how, it's gonna rain today. I mean, oh no. And get into a whole baba, a whole emotional state about it. Why is it going to rain today? Are the demigods conspiring against us? Let's get to the bottom of this. Can you really trust the weather report? Who is behind Met Weather? Who made the app? Maybe Met Weather is okay, but the one who made the app, and the app is gathering information about you, even while you're checking the weather. It's all a conspiracy. And what about the adverts that are on that app? There's some sinister effect on your subconsciousness coming from the Met Weather apps on your phone. So we can go on and on about this. And some of it might be true, relatively speaking. But is that where we want our consciousness to be? What is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu talking about when he says, Gramya Bharta na kohibe? Don't indulge in talking unnecessarily about news of the material world. He means don't get into it, just understand it. Like the weather. Yesterday was rainy, today it's something else. It comes and goes, it comes and goes. You don't absorb your consciousness in it. And that's not being naive, that is being the smartest. As Krishna explains in the 2nd chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Mata sparsha stukonteya shitoshna sukadukada. Just like winter and summer come and go, similarly happiness and distress comes and goes. The affairs of this world, the external affairs, will march on and on and on, the same old song. Understanding that is not naivete. Understanding that doesn't mean you have blinders on your eyes. It means you truly understand. And then you're thinking, what do I want to achieve with my human birth? Do I want to get caught up in the ongoing external influences that constantly march and then disappear and reappear again? In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna wants you to be aware of not simply the events that we consider so crucial, politics, sociology, this, that, the other. Krishna talks about bhutva praliyate. What about this? The material world is created and annihilated again and again. In other words, expand your vision. You want to think about external affairs. What about the ongoing creation and annihilation of the universe? Well, that's a bit too much for us. We just want to focus on the apparent mundane affairs of this world. But Krishna says, all right, you want to get into it? You want to get into external affairs, worldly affairs? Think about this. Bhutva praliyate. What about Brahma? Brahma's day and Brahma's night. What about that? Sahasra yuga paryantam aharya brahmanovidu. Brahma's night is 4 billion and so years, and his day is of the same duration. You want to think about external affairs? Well, really get into it. So devotees are not naive by their focus on the name, form, qualities, and pastimes of Krishna. They understand what the real purpose of the universe is. The real purpose of the universe is to give a chance for those jivatmas, those conditioned souls who want to be reformed. But at the same time, there are wondrous distractions provided by the modes of material nature, like Trigunamai. And indeed, we give credit where credit is due. These distractions are marvelous. you can't come up with a better way to deviate human beings from the path of self-realization than what Maya does to you. Brilliant distractions, often espoused by apparently brilliant persons. But when you think about it, if you ever get the time to think, which in a society like we have doesn't come very often, such opportunity. When you get a time to think, what's the value of such apparently brilliant persons when they're playthings in the hands of time? As Srila Prabhupada writes in one purport, why should we give so much attention to the thoughts and statements of someone who's definitely going to die and has no solution for death? Now, we listened to Parikshit Maharaj. He had 7 days to live. But he's demonstrating to you how to conquer over death. So what is the value of putting so much emphasis on notions and concepts coming from persons who have no solution to the real problems of life? Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadhi. So is this being naive? Now sometimes people say, well, by you Krishna people, you're so concerned about the future, what your next body is going to be, what your next life is going to be. You're so hung up on that you're destroying the enjoyment of the present moment. In order to truly enjoy the present moment, you need to take your eye off the future. Who knows what it's going to be? And anyway, who cares? The whole point is right now, or tomorrow, or the next weekend. This is the intense mesmerization, the intense bewilderment that the material energy forces upon people in Kali Yuga. Why think of your future existence? Who knows? But their very activities show that they're lying. How is that? If you're not concerned with the future, don't have insurance, don't have savings, don't worry about what's going to happen to your children. In a normal material civilization, persons are concerned with the future of their children. But if you say the future is ruining the present moment by the meditation on the future, what your next body is going to be, that's ruining the present moment, then stop being concerned with the future of your children, their education. Why worry about it? Did you just go to Vic? Did you just go to the uni simply for the present moment? Well, I think many of you did, but, but still you had the notion that this will make the future better. And then there are discussions. Well, you're going to the uni. What should you study? Should you just study whatever you like? Anthropology, Italian literature? Or should you be more career focused? Where's the money going to come from? So sooner or later, you're dealing with the future. So why is it that when Bhagavatam says, what about your next body? Well, that's just a bit too much. What about the fact that you're going to face disease, old age, and death, and rebirth? Oh, we just push that all aside and get on with the party right now. So this is ignorance. And in the name of being smart about politics and sociology and this and that, we miss out on what our real potential is, what our real mission is. We become so distracted and bewildered. So yes, the acharyas would sometimes comment about world affairs in passing. In passing means like you're in a car and you see a let's say you see a veggie stand. You're driving from here to Levin on State Highway 1, and you see a veggie stand or a fruit stand on the side of the road. You may know, oh, they're selling oranges or they're selling avocados. But the car keeps going. You just mentioned, oh my God, stop the car. Avocados. And where do the avocados come from? Is it a plot? What's the purpose of these avocados? You stop the car and get into a whole discussion about it. No, in passing. Oh, there are avocados there. I wonder if they're fresh. I wonder if they're ripe. But the car keeps going. That's what it means to talk about something in passing. So yes, devotees are aware as much as they can be about what goes on in the world, but it's in passing. We don't get embroiled in it. And you'll never get to the depths of it. You want to understand the workings of the material world? From the material point of view, Krishna assures you, you'll never figure it out. It's a maze. There's one layer upon another layer upon another layer. We can't even see that we're encased in the universe, surrounded by shells. Each shell, much bigger. How many times bigger? 10 times bigger than the preceding shell. Do you see that? So bhakti is about being the most practical, being the most precise, how to have the best lifestyle, because you're taking into account the purpose of the human form of life, and you know all the influences of the universe. And you know you cannot defeat Maya on her own terms. You have to adopt another pathway. So devotees are not naive, just closing their eyes while the world is going through so many intricacies which happen again and again and again. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna instructs that you're not even concerned with the heavenly planets. In other words, if you're a real sense enjoyer, if you're a true blue materialist, you want to go to heavenly planets. You want to go to Swargaloka, where the sense gratification is thousands of times better than what's on earth here. Can you imagine that? Thousands of times better. Sense gratification thousands of times better on Swargaloka. The heavenly planets. And with the Nandana gardens, where the most beautiful demigod ladies are waiting for you in the garden. Their bodies are cooling in the summer and warming in the winter. Anyone have a partner like that? No perspiration, just continuous heavenly fragrances coming from the bodies. So if you're a real enjoyer, material enjoyer, that's where you want to go. Not this third-class planet. But Krishna assures you, Abrahma Bhuvanaloka Puna Arvatuna Arjuna. From the lowest planet to the highest planet, all are places of suffering. So you're thinking, well, how could there be suffering at a place which has sense gratification 1,000 times better than what's available on earth? It's going to end. And that knowledge that it's going to end produces anxiety. Even though it's so good, it's going to end. The party is going to be over. Just like on earth, the party is going to be over. Elsewhere in the 5th canto, the demigods give some amazing insight for human beings. The demigods say, if during our stint in the heavenly planets, we have any punya, any good karma left over in our account, we want to take birth on earth. Why? They're not asking, for more time in the heavenly planets. They explain the heavenly planets are too intense materially. The sense gratification is so distracting. It's better to take birth on Earth where there is mixed happiness and distress, because in that way we'll be more serious about pursuing the ultimate goal of life. So these are the very words of the devatas, the demigods. Get us out of here. and an intelligent, genuine materialist on Earth is thinking, get me there. But of course, these days, no one knows anything about the heavenly planets and the heavenly standard of sense gratification. Everyone is just slugging it out, literally, on the Earth planet and destroying the planet in the process. So Krishna assures you in Bhagavad Gita, Daivi Esha Gunamayi Mamamaya Duratya. You'll never figure out the material energy on its own terms. You'll be always blinded. Krishna has made it that way. When you think you got everything understood, things just go the opposite way. Or you realize there's something more, and there's something more, and there's something more. So by the bhakti yogis focusing on their spiritual subject matter, they are being the most efficient, they're being the most practical. Their eyes are wide open. Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita how Adibhutam Sharobhava, the material world is constantly transforming. Constantly. If you want to get to the bottom of what happens in the material world, you've got to trace it to its root. As explained in the 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, about the tree reflected on the river, upside down. And Krishna urges you, Asvattam Enam Suviruddha Moolam. Get to the root of the problem, get to the root of the cosmic manifestation, cut the tree down with determination. So is this naivete? This is being the most pragmatic, the most practical. So again, we do keep up with world affairs without becoming absorbed in them. As Prabhupada writes and teaches of Lord Chaitanya, if you don't know minimally something about world affairs, people will think devotees are fools. Well, who's the prime minister? I don't know. We're all transcendental. We don't worry about that. So in passing, lightly, we're aware of as much as we need to know in order to serve Krishna. But we understand that you'll never get to the bottom of the material illusion. On material terms, it'll never happen. It's too blinding, it's too bewildering. We're like, when we try to do that, materially get to the bottom of material affairs, it's like a little kid with a kaleidoscope. And the kid is holding the kaleidoscope. How many of you play with a kaleidoscope as kids? Yes. Even the ladies do? Oh, that's right, it's New Zealand. So you're holding the kaleidoscope up to the light and you're turning it. The child's turning it. And it just seems to be a fascinatingly endless array of stuff you can see. But then when you get older, you realize it's just a few bits of plastic, colored plastic at the end of a cardboard tube. So similarly, when you have transcendental knowledge, then you understand that all these manifestations, permutations, it's a show put on by Maya. And you get to the root of it all. Maya is the external energy of Krishna, meant to bewilder you. Bewildering you means to distract you from what is your real purpose in life. So yes, we have to admit there's an energy out there, and also in our body and mind, that's meant to deviate us, impede us from what is the actual purpose of life. So you can't blame Krishna about that. He tells you it's there, and he gives you the solution. But you want to deal with it on your own terms, it'll never happen. You'll never win. That's what Krishna says. Mama Maya Duratjaya. You can't beat it. You can't figure out the illusion with your own intelligence. It just goes on and on and on and on and on. In the third canto of Bhagavatam, Vidura, in speaking to Maitreya, explains that this material world is not real in the sense of the spiritual world. It's not real, but it appears to be real. But I'm confident, he tells Maitreya, that by serving your lotus feet, I can surpass this illusion. In other words, any other way can't be done. Krishna is giving us a process, how to deal with the illusion, the apparently unlimited distraction. In some religions, they talk about the devil and Satan. The devil is out to get us. The devil is tempting us. There's some reality to that presentation, but in Bhagavatam you start to understand there's an energy deputed to distract and bewilder you. And that energy has a source. And there's a reason why that energy is there, that energy of bewilderment, Maya. As you know, Maya literally means that which is not. It looks for real, but it isn't. It's the shadow, not the substance. So devotees save themselves from the trouble of becoming caught up in this whirlpool. Or maybe they don't have whirlpools in New Zealand, but they have rips. Everyone's afraid of getting caught in a rip. If you're not a strong swimmer, even if you are a strong swimmer, anyone here ever been caught in a rip? Yes? Was it a battle in the Thai town?
Takes a lot of swimming to get out of it.
Anyone else caught in a rip? Where? In South Africa? How did you get out of it?
Someone saved me.
Someone saved. No ladies caught in rips? Oh, Gitavali here in New Zealand?
Piha Beach.
Oh.
Getting dragged out, and then Brother has to come and pull me up.
Just see, he's always saving. From the time as a tourist you met him on Sankirtan. Okay, so we're getting a bit jolly on the second day of class. We have Dina Palika here, who just arrived today or yesterday?
Yesterday,
You were at the program yesterday?
in the evening.
Yes, so you don't know what a rip is, do you? She's from an inland rural town in Pennsylvania.
Vaguely.
So, the material world is a rip. It's a current that just drags you out. And you say, well, I'm a strong swimmer, I can handle it. And that's part of the rip, to make you think you can handle it. And meanwhile, you're just getting dragged further and further and further out into the ocean. So those who want to be pure devotees, and we should all aspire for that, want to avoid the rip. And that's why, as Judd Bard is telling Rahugana here, and remember, who is Rahugana? Is he just some guy off the street? Rahugana is the chief executive of the state. And Judd Bard is telling him these things. In other words, Unless Rahugana has this information, how can he truly benefit the people? As explained in Bhagavad Gita, the purpose of the chief executive, head of state, is to protect the citizens from lust. Can you imagine telling that to whoever your prime minister or president is? Excuse me, but your job is to protect the citizenry from lust. People will think you're mad. But Rahugana wants to hear this information. He was proud at first. Those of you who read the 5th canto know about how Rahugana was high on his palanquin, his portable throne, borne by conscripted labor. And he conscripted Jud Bharat, thinking, oh, it's a dumb brute. Let him help carry the palanquin. And then when he started hearing the words of Jud Bharat, he realized, what am I doing? Who is this person? And from riding high on his palanquin, you know what a palanquin is? Yes, anyone doesn't know what a palanquin is? Yeah. From riding high, he plunges to the ground and offers full dandavats just by hearing what Jud Bharat preliminarily had to say. Rahugana is thinking, oh my God, I've made a huge mistake. This is no dumb brute. This is a Paramahansa transcendentalist. I must hear from him. So with that attitude shown by Rahugana Maharaj, Jud Bharat is able to give instruction. Rahugana Maharaj is not challenging. Well, what do you know? And okay, you're entitled to your opinion, but I'm the king and I have my opinion. No, he's on the ground, full dandavats, begging for instruction. And Jud Bharat will explain about the forest of material enjoyment. Jud Bharat will explain about the body and the mind, how the body and the mind team up to bewilder the spirit soul. And Rahugana will ask for clarification very humbly. Now, what do you mean by that? You have your opinion. You're entitled to your opinion. I'm entitled to mine. No, Rahugana is going to say, I'm hearing what you're saying, but can you please clarify? There seems to be an apparent contradiction. I know there's no contradiction, but for example, he says, you say the body is different from the spirit soul, but why is it that we living entities feel happiness and distress with our bodies? Very intelligent questions. But he presents the questions in such a perfect way, and therefore Jud Bharat can give the perfect answers. It is not being naive to focus on the qualities, forms, and pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As Prabhupada writes, the attitude about avoiding becoming caught up in the currents of the world is very important for a devotee, a very important feature in the life of a devotee. So we have to read these books with the idea of lifestyle transformation. Am I corresponding to what I'm reading? Or am I just, yeah, sure, right. Okay. Now it's time for 2 hours, 3 hours on social media. Jud Bharat is trying to save you from wasting your time. And Prabhupada is mercifully underlining Jud Bharat's instruction. How devotees actually have no opportunity to waste their time unnecessarily. That's the standard, no opportunity. no opportunity to waste your time unnecessarily by discussing politics, sociology, and current events. These will go their own way. You may notice, whether you talk about it or think about it or not, things are happening. Sometimes you get the illusion that you can make a difference, as I say. Get out there and do something, be an activist, make a difference. But you may notice that there's no difference in people's consciousness. The greed increases, the lust increases, the pride increases. No matter whether there's this political solution or that environmental solution, what's going on? The surge of pollution just increases. You probably heard, I've explained before, the end of my activism career. Naturally, in the late 60s, early 70s, every student at the university was an activist. Down with this and down with that, protesting against this and protesting against that. You weren't a bona fide student unless you were doing that. I remember members of my activist group, we actually disrupted classrooms at the Yale University Law School. One of the most prestigious law schools in the world. There's so many presidents have come from there. Both Clintons came from there. And what we did, we just marched into the classrooms and were banging on the students' desks. Stop the cops! Stop the cops! Some students were into it. Yeah. Some of the law students, yeah. We were protesting. And then I remember one big, burly student, law student, came, picked me up, and carried me out of the classroom. So yeah, I was into it, you know. You had to be, if you were a bona fide student, you had to protest. You had to protest the Vietnam War, civil rights protests, this, that. You had to do it. Now, some students, they went too far in the eyes of the university. They occupied a university building for like 3 whole days. And the university warned them, if you don't get out of the building, you're going to be kicked out of the school. But they were determined to show that they were true blue revolutionaries. They refused to leave. Whereas most students thought, well, I'm at Yale University, Brahma Loka. I may have my issues with the political situation, but I'm not going to get kicked out of school. But some students did. And they stayed, and the university said, all right, that's it. The university sent in the university police, not the city police, but the university police. And then they had the deans of all the various parts of the university waiting outside the building to identify students. So as the university police brought out the students who were occupying the building, and the students were feeling very righteous, the cause was just, and as they filed out, the deans of the various parts of Yale University were there. Okay, that one, yeah, we know him. We know him. That was the end. That was the end of their student career. Out you go. So, I didn't go that far. My parents would have skinned me alive. In fact, there was a big protest in the city, in New Haven, Connecticut, and all the stores had boarded up their windows because the stores were expecting there was going to be some tumult. And so the whole town, the whole city was just boarded up. The store windows boarded up. And I was waiting. Wow, what's going to happen? This is interesting. Then there's a knock on my door where I was staying. I opened the door, and there's my father, who's like in the New York City Police Department, Bureau of Internal Affairs. And he said, pack your bag, we're going away for the weekend. I don't want to see the protest. He said, my dear son, always remember this, choose your battles. So there he was, with his Mercedes outside the front door. So I packed my bag, and I missed the whole demonstration, the whole protest. In other words, materially speaking, no matter what people say or do, the bottom line is I'm thinking about myself in some way. Extended selfishness. So how did my material activist, I'm still an activist, but we're spiritual activists, but how did my material activist days end? I went to a big organizational meeting for planning a special weekend of revolutionary radical consciousness, which was nothing radical because all the students were into it. It was mainstream, but we thought radical. So the leaders, the chairmen, because at that time Yale was all men. The ladies had their own prestige schools. So there was a planning commission for how to plan out the weekend, just like we have a festival weekend here. We have a wonderful planning team of Madhava Mohini and Tulavati and Veera Gopi and who else? Those three? Okay. So they, serving Krishna so wonderfully, they put so much time into organizing this festival. We can all thank them. So there was going to be this big weekend gathering. And it was going to be with seminars and workshops and tours of the blighted parts of the city so you would feel camaraderie with the oppressed people, and on and on the list went. So then after the organizing committee made their presentation, then the vice chairman stood up and said, because what they were going to do is invite students not only from Yale but from neighboring schools, neighboring prestige elitist institutions, and especially the girls from the girls' elite schools. Vassar and Radcliffe and Nitai Chand knows all those names. So the vice chairman stands up and says, all right, boys, Saturday at 7 p.m., all the workshops and seminars end. And you know what time it is, right, boys? We all yell out, party, party! At that point, I just sunk in my chair. I said, what kind of revolution is this? It's the same old same thing. And then he went further. Yes, party, boys! And then he said, if 3 a.m. comes around and you haven't made it to a motel room with a fine revolutionary sister, then be humble. Come on back and clean up the party room. I said, oh my God, I'm out of here. That's it, no more politics, it's all the same thing. It just reminded me of a French play that I saw on TV when I was a kid, and it was about the French Revolution, a drama, and at one point in the drama, the actors, male and female, would be sitting on the floor facing one another, holding hands and swaying back and forth, singing, What's the point of a revolution without general copulation? That's what came to my mind when I heard the vice chairman say this. I said, I'm out of here. That's it. I told myself there must be a way for higher consciousness. There must be a pathway to higher consciousness, because this is the same thing. It's the same old song. Standing up during the day for exploitation and oppression, how to stop that? And then when night comes, exploiting your body and someone else's body, oppressing your body and someone else's body. So I said, that's it. I'm just going to focus on the possibility of higher consciousness, how to rise to that. So this Krishna Consciousness Society is an alternative society. When it comes to political affairs, we offer Krishna's system. We present Krishna's political system, which is Varnashram Dharma. Unless you have first-class, self-controlled, wise human beings advising society, it's going to be a madhouse. So we're trying to develop genuine brahmanas, those who are spiritual intellectuals, who can give guidance, who can give wisdom, who know how to live simply, as Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita, Shamodhamastapa Shaucham Shantirajamamevacha. Control of the mind, control of the senses, austere, clean, simple living. We're trying to develop at least a few persons like that. And that is the real solution to the human mayhem that's destroying the whole planet. Environmental destruction, threat of nuclear weapons. What is the solution that lasts? Developing human beings who can control their mind and senses and who are equipped with transcendental knowledge. Just like Rahugana, he recognizes Judd Barrett looks like an avadut. He looks like a fool, but I've heard his sound vibration. I want that kind of person guiding me in my capacity as chief executive. So we're not naive. We're not babes lost in the woods. A devotee, a bhakti yogi, is expert in not wasting time and energy. So we'll go to the next verse where Judd Barrett explains something about his previous birth. We'll just briefly touch upon that and then take some questions. So text 14. Aham pura bharato nama raja vimukta drishta shruta sangha bandha aradanam bhagavata ihamano mrigobhavam mriga sangad datata. In a previous birth, I was known as Maharaj Bharat. I attained perfection by becoming completely detached from material activities through direct experience. And through indirect experience, I received understanding from the Vedas. I was fully engaged in the service of the Lord. But due to my misfortune, I became very affectionate to a small deer. So much so that I neglected my spiritual duties. Due to my deep affection for the deer, in my next life I had to accept the body of a deer. So this is Judd Barrett explaining his previous birth and how he got into that situation. He had actually attained the platform of bhava, the preliminary stage of praying. But he somehow or other became distracted. Remember, we talked about how material existence is full of distractions? Wondrous distractions, ingenious distractions. Said, I became very affectionate to a small deer, so much so that I neglected my spiritual duties. And so now I've taken a body of a deer in my previous birth, that is. I took the body of a deer because of my deep affection for this little deer. So he's showing you how the mirage of material existence operates. Now you might say, well, why? He was at the stage of bhava. What happened? Does Krishna just want us to fall down? Why? So then we look at the purport, which is very interesting. The incident described herein is very significant. In a previous verse, it is stated, Vina mahat pada rajo vishekam. One cannot attain perfection without smearing the dust from the lotus feet of an exalted devotee on his head. If one always follows the orders of the spiritual master, there's no question of falling down. As soon as a foolish disciple tries to overtake his spiritual master and becomes ambitious to occupy his post, he immediately falls down. Yasya prasada bhagavat prasada, yasya prasada nagati katopi. If the spiritual master is considered an ordinary man, the disciple surely loses his chance to advance further. Despite a very rigid life in devotional service, Bharat Maharaj did not consult a spiritual master when he became overly attached to a deer. Consequently, he became strongly attached to the deer, and forgetting his spiritual routine, he fell down. So this is Judd Bharat presenting his autobiography. As we briefly mentioned the other day, Sanatana Goswami explains that fall downs such as by Judd Bharat or Sobari Muni are staged just to teach us by their events. So let's remember the value of coming together and chanting about Krishna, talking about Krishna. Talking about Krishna means also talking about the path of bhakti, what impedes bhakti and what nurtures bhakti. This is our life. As for the affairs of this world, they will go their own way. We are aware of them. We position ourselves accordingly. Just like if you check the weather report, it says rain, so you carry an umbrella or some kind of jacket. But we're not totally absorbed and neurotic about the weather in a way that we already discussed. So today, by the way, is Balaram's Rasa Leela, which is a subject for advanced devotees, but it's presented in Krishna book in a way that everyone can access without making an offense. So we'll briefly talk about Balaram and his intoxication, his partying, and his dancing. And remember, Balaram is Krishna's first expansion. There's practically no difference between Krishna and Balaram, except Krishna's bluish, Balaram's whitish. Krishna wears yellow cloth, and Balaram wears bluish cloth, so that's how close they are. So, how is it that there can be the supreme ultimate source without romance, partying, intoxication, and dancing? You ever think about that? You like those things because they're there in perfection in the ultimate source. Balaram and Krishna never have to work for their parties. They never have to go to Liquorland and buy intoxication. When I stay in the flats near the Bhakti Lounge, when it's a Friday or Saturday night, you see all these people going to the Liquorland, whatever it's called, to get their packages for the weekend. And spending their hard-earned money. They want relief. So, this tendency to be intoxicated has to be there in the Supreme. Otherwise, why is it in you? Who is it? One devotee was telling me. I asked her, well, what attracted you to the party scene? What did you do there? And she just honestly told me, well, you just get wasted and you can forget about the world. So there's that tendency to get wasted. Would you believe you have it in you because it's there in the ultimate source? Lord Balaram gets wasted. But there's nothing material about what he does. There's nothing material about who he is. There's not a trace of the material energy. So this is one of the great mysteries of bhakti. How is it that there can be pure Satchidananda, intoxication, dancing, and partying? This is everything we want. But when we hear that this is what Krishna and Balaram do, oh, mythology. But when we want to do it, oh, it's the real thing. Oh, I haven't been to a party in so long. So these human tendencies must be there in the ultimate source, but they're there in perfection. How can these tendencies be in the part if they're not there in the complete whole? But you can be envious. And impersonalism is envy. We've experienced the frustration caused by parties and intoxication in material existence. So that means spiritual existence should be zero, empty of all variety, qualities, activities. Because we've experienced personhood and individuality on the material plane, and there's so much suffering. So the Supreme Absolute should be devoid of qualities, activities, personalities. So therefore they consider, impersonalists consider, all this talk about Balaram and his partying at night on the bank of the Yamuna, getting intoxicated. This is all just another form of Maya. But they sometimes say, Maya at the highest level. Balaram is a creation of Maya at the highest level. And he has activities, but it's still Maya. This is envy. Balaram is doing everything that you'd love to do, but you have so many problems. Balaram never works for his pleasure. There's no hangover for Balaram. Everything is perfect because there's not one trace of the material energy. So you can, those of you who are not familiar with Balaram's trip to Vrindavan and his becoming intoxicated and dancing at night, you can read about it in the Krishna book. It's there in a way that by your reading it, you won't make offenses, because there's Leela, there is pastime, there are pastimes mixed with tattva, philosophical, scientific understanding. That's the incredible gift of the Krishna book. You get both. Otherwise, without the tattva, without the scientific understanding, you'd think this is all mythology. These are nice stories, but got no correlation to reality. But when you read the tattva, the spiritual science, along with the pastime, then you understand that this is reality. And we're living in a perverted reflection of that reality. Therefore, we want to party, we want to get intoxicated, we want to dance. Just hear how Balaram does it. In the forest, beautiful forest, loaded with fragrances from lotus flowers, and a gentle breeze is blowing, and there's a full moon. The full moon was not there just for one night. Every night for 2 months, Balaram had his dancing on the bank of the river, and the moon was full every night. Can you arrange that? So the smells were there. The whole forest was loaded with the fragrance of lotus flowers. Gentle breezes were blowing. The full moon is shining. And Balaram is there with his girlfriends who have pure spiritual forms. No material bodies, no material minds, no material emotions. Everything is perfect without Balaram having to arrange it. The Yogamaya energy, the spiritual potency, arranges everything perfectly for the pleasure of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Balaram is dancing, Balaram is romancing. Everything is his energy. His girlfriends are his Shakti, his energy. Moreover, Balaram has the blessings of Krishna to enjoy in this way. Because Krishna was pleased that Balaram had pacified Krishna's gopis. And so therefore, along with Balaram's inconceivable, unlimited abilities to enjoy, Krishna also gave more impetus to Balaram. Because Balaram has his own set of consorts, different from Krishna's. It's not all one. The varieties are all part of the same Supreme Absolute Truth. But there's distinction. So Balaram has his own set of girlfriends, and he dances with them on a spot in the forest different from where Krishna dances. So there's unity, yet there's distinction. So what happens while Balaram is partying? Varuni decides to help out. She's the daughter of Varuna. And Varuni wants to please Balaram, so she becomes Braj Varuni. She appears in Vrindavan as the most delightful honey-like beverage pouring out of a tree. And Balaram goes to the tree and starts lapping up the Varuni beverage. And then he has all his girlfriends drink also. So everyone becomes, you would say, wasted. But remember, these are Satchidananda personalities, eternity, knowledge, and bliss. So their becoming wasted is not the mode of ignorance. It's nothing material. They're just relishing with Balaram. So they're all drinking this Varuni beverage. We're going to bring out some tonight. Our version of Varuni beverage. So then after they're totally intoxicated, Balaram's eyes are rolling with intoxication. Did you ever try to imitate that? Anyone? So intoxicated your eyes were rolling? So then, it's not finished. The night just goes on and on and on. In fact, this goes on for 2 months, but all the nights seem to be one night. The full moon always shining. The fragrance is always there. And then after the intoxication session, while they're still intoxicated, Balaram tells his girls, We're going into the Jamuna River. You couldn't imagine anything better. The forest, the river, the honey intoxication. But if you're an impersonalist, you think, oh no, that is all illusion. The absolute truth is devoid of variety, individuality, personality. How are you going to be attracted to that? So while talking about impersonalism, it's all one, nirguna, Brahman, there's no form, qualities, or activities. While talking like that, guess what happens? You remain attached to the names, forms, and activities of the material world. You don't have anything better to focus on other than denying. This is Maya, that is Maya. It's all illusion. Okay, it's all illusion, now what? What do you become attached to? So today is the day of Balaram Rasayatra, and we offer our obeisances to Lord Balaram's intoxicated state. And we thank the Varuni beverage. We thank the daughter of Varuna, who appeared as Varuni to serve Balaram and his entourage in this way. So yes, they finished the night by all plunging into the Jamuna River and sporting in the Jamuna River. Now guys, tell me, who is the guy who wouldn't like that? What do you, a night of dancing and intoxication, and then water sports with the most beautiful ladies, just one guy surrounded by Sankirtan Ram is like, ooh. One guy and all these countless beauties, infinitely beautiful consorts of Balaram sporting in the Jamuna River. You would think, wow, it doesn't get any better than this. Balaram is showing you. This is what you do in the association of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Come and join me. No, I have my attachments in the material world. Or beyond the material world, everything is just zero, or homogeneous oneness with no variety, personality, individuality. Meanwhile, while you're talking that nonsense, Balaram is dancing. His eyes are rolling.